Hey, Aaron, Metal Theologian. So I'm going to do a little public service announcement tonight to start us off. So if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I really like Russian metal a lot. Big fan. And Nuclear War Now has been reissuing some of these, some of the really sort of rare ones. And you know, a lot of these records were kind of easy to get for a long time. Like you had to pay to get them shipped from Russia. But then they were cheap, you know what I mean? Like some of my favorites like EVM or the first Magnet record, some of those. They're like $10 records, and you had to pay for shipping from overseas, but you get a few of them together and put it in a big pack, and it wasn't a big deal, you know? Well, now with, you know, shit going on in the world, it's gotten a lot harder to get shit from Russia, and so now a lot of these records have gotten harder to come by for those few of us who care about them. So, yeah, Novy Zavod is another one, or Holostoy Vlistrel. That's a good one. So anyway, some of these have been reissued by a Nuclear War Now. And right now I'm listening to one that I wasn't sure what to make of at first, but it's kind of becoming a favorite. And that is this one by Creed. Or Credo. Credo. Yeah, paying for everything, I guess. Yeah, it's funny to see the Orthodox imagery of a church. It's getting broken up there. But, you know, you gotta go with the local customs, right? Even when it comes to the religion that you're rebelling against. So, yeah, these guys, this was sort of the follow-on band to Magnet. And actually, I might as well go into this, because another one that I really like. So Magnet was this band from like the mid to late 80s, and they made a really sort of batshit insane record called Dies Irae, or I don't remember what the title was in Russian. If I knew Russian, it might help, but I don't. So, anyway, apparently they recorded a second album that was never released at the time, and they sort of broke up and reformed as Credo and released that album. So this one is the second album, which is also pretty fucking fantastic. That's Magnet in Cyrillic there. Yeah, it's funny. They sort of imitated the style of the original Melodia album. The first one came out on Melodia. The Credo one didn't, but the Magnet record did. I did it with like the typeface and, you know, Nuclear War Now in Russian. So yeah, this one isn't sort of, the first one was really just kind of batshit. Like it was just sort of like kind of screamy and like really grandiose, but like in a way that's just a little bit off kilter all the time. This one kind of has that going. It isn't quite as insane as that one, but this is also great, man. And I've been playing this record a lot, you know? So yeah, I'm stoked to see this one. And then this Credo one, which actually comes with a bonus 45 that I put away. This one is like, this one has that sort of grandiosity. And, you know, usually when people talk about a band as being operatic, what they're talking about is like a singer who sings in a high range, you know? So I tend to shy away from that term. Like Merciful Fate is not operatic in that sense. Because, you know, King Diamond, first of all, he's not singing like, you know, a trained tenor. He's singing like, it's a lot of falsetto and shit like that too. And it's a lot of kind of screaming, you know? I'm just going to go ahead and start this over so you can get a little bit of a taste of it. But this one, it's like, it's operatic in the sense of like the whole sort of thing, like the grandiosity of it. Like it almost sounds like there's a full like sort of orchestra hitting in the face. But it's still unabashedly metal, you know? There's some synth moves and shit like this. This intro is almost, well, it's not misleading because it kind of does let you know what you're in for. But in a way, it's almost too much like a standard sort of metal intro, you know what I mean? And then when it comes in and it's not like the heaviest thing ever. I don't know, I'm not sure what to make of the intro. But we'll get there in a second. It's it just gets really sort of big and really fat and really sort of interesting as far as like what they're doing with the key changes in the middle of the song and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like the chord progressions are really interesting, you know? And there's a lot been made out of how these guys are like classically trained and shit, but that's another one of those canards you always hear, you know? You know, X is really good because he was classically trained, you know? So I kind of, you know, so this is clearly metal, right? This isn't like pretending to be like some sort of prog shit and sort of like, oh yeah, we're kind of heavy on the side, but you know, it's like unabashedly metal. I love the backing vocals too, man. The Russian vocals really add to it, you know. Anyway, it's a great record. It's nice that it's not hard to get anymore because, in contrast with a lot of the reissue labels going around, Nuclear War now doesn't really tend to play those kinds of games with their shit. Like, they don't take pre-orders at all. And in an age of, you know, pre-orders for everything, I really kind of respect that. How about the little bridge section there? See, he has the vocals, right? But he's singing it like a metal singer, right? And it's just like fat and it's big. And it's sort of in your face and it's like, grandiose, you know. I feel like I keep coming back to that word, but it really sort of has that going on. So this one has that too. It doesn't sound like quite the same band, you know, and I sort of want to make sure that they have this sort of distinct identity, but because they really kind of do. Just because you like Magnetes doesn't mean you're gonna love Credo, but you probably will. It's one of those, you know what I'm saying? You know, it's funny because this is a second album by them, which I sort of snoozed on for a little while too. I was like, eventually I broke down and got it because a few weeks ago, Dan from the Colosseum was hyping it, and I was like, okay, man, I gotta buy it. I want to hear it anyway. So, but you know, what earlier this evening, one of my kids asked me, my younger kid, the one who still lives at home, said he ordered another CD recently by a band that he digs. He collects CDs. And he was listening to one of the other ones that he already had by them. He was like, "Hey, does that happen to you? Or like when you have a record coming in the mail that like it makes you want to listen to ones by the same band you already have even more?" And I was like, "Yo, shit." You know, outside of like jazz, it doesn't really happen very often because usually like most of my favorite bands are the bands that I see got metal records by at least. Only ever made one record. I think if they made more, like most of the bands that made multiple records that I like, I already have everything I need by, you know? Like, I really don't need any more Judas Priest records, you know? I'm not saying that the ones that I don't have are shit, but I have all the important ones, and I have a couple of the mediocre ones. It's really plenty, you know? It's like a dozen or something like that, you know? Black Sabbath, shit like that. Metallica. I'm just not really looking for those bands, you know? Slayer. I've had all that stuff for a long time at this point, so the shit that I'm digging for is all this obscure shit, you know? And it's sort of a funny position to find yourself in as a collector where, like, I'm specifically looking for things by bands that I don't already know, you know? I suppose that goes with the whole sort of aesthetic of the channel, though. I mean, that's kind of how I've learned to collect, you know? In an era when, you know, I didn't have an older brother or really reliable, with some notable exceptions. There weren't a whole lot of metal magazines that I ever really paid a lot of attention to. Of course, I read Metal Maniacs for a while there, but like even like in the 80s when people are like, oh yeah, you know, I remember like this and that from Metal Hammer or this and that, or you know, these other magazines, Kerrang. I was too cheap to buy those. I was like, well listen, I can buy 2 of these magazines or I can buy a fucking record. I'm gonna take the record every time, and I did, you know? So this is another one that I really like. This is another one that gets a little bit better if you listen. That little sequence, it's so obvious, but the flourish they put on it is like unexpected anyway, you know? That's what's really sort of special about this band Credo is they can take a really obvious chord progression like this, but they put that little extra like, forget about the, you know, the music theory shit, but they just put this extra little flourish into it to make it a little bit more interesting, you know, and it keeps your attention all the way through. Every time I listen to this record, I like it a little more. Anyway, let's talk about this band, Crisis. This is a private press one. That isn't the easiest thing to find, but it's also one of those records that people kind of sleep on. It's funny, every time I show this, like, the color changes because it's so, like, stark on the thing. But yeah, Crisis, Hard as Rock. This is really... It's really kind of the opposite end of the spectrum from this Credo one. Because where this one is just, like, loaded with frills and grandiosity and just, like... almost more ideas than they know what to do with, but not quite. This one is just really sort of straight ahead, down to the point, and actually a really pretty great record too. Like, it's not the greatest thing ever, But it's one of those where I pull it out and I play it once and I go, yeah, that's pretty good. But then when I play it again, I always go, this is really pretty fantastic. So, yes, let's fire this one up for a couple minutes here. This one, there are two different versions of this one. This is the private one, which I think is the first version. Then there's another one that came out on Metalworks out of the UK. It was a license. I think it was out of the UK. And it had a different cover. But it's exactly the same album. So, yeah, a little bit of water damage there, alas. But this thing set me back all of like $15. Now, in fairness, I bought it, a good 20 years ago. Maybe it'll set you back 25 or 30 now. But this isn't like, a $200 record. It's just chunky and sort of meaty. I love the effect on the vocals. And this is like 82 or something like that. It's pretty early for what it is. These guys were American. 81, actually. I don't know when it came out, but it was recorded in April of 81, according to the liner notes on the back. So yeah, as far as the songwriting and that, it definitely has some sort of hard rock aspects to it. Compared to like the new wave of British heavy metal stuff, right? But you could take any two songs off this record, and if you put them on a 45 and could attest to the fact that it was from the UK and came out in 1981, it'd be one of the mega grails of the genre, Sort of an unassuming band, unassuming cover. I don't know anything about these guys. There's no picture of them on here. It does have a lineup on the back. So maybe somebody knows who they are, but sort of a nobody band. They made one record, which happened to be a full LP. But it's also a full LP that's great all the way through, man. It sort of keeps its mojo. Such a cool record, man. Here's another one that I pulled out again recently. And it's funny because this sort of, I don't want to say it's the opposite of Crisis because I already said Credo was that, right? But I said that one, like I pull it out and play it once, I go, it's really good. And then like the second time I go, it's great. With this one, every time I pull it out, I put this on the first song, I'm like, this is better than I remembered it. It's really good. I'm getting into it. By the end of the first side, I'm like, this is kind of petering out. This is Ruffians, and you got a plural name there, right? So that's your first sort of bad sign. Although, they don't do the punk thing. This is a metal record. Pretty unequivocally. And you have Carl Albert, who is probably better known for his work with Villain and Vicious Rumors. Probably in reverse order those two, but I like the Villain record better, so. Yeah, so they're from San Francisco. We're nearby. Their fan club's actually in Berkeley, so East Bay maybe, but San Francisco area. It's 85. And this thing really has the intention, and it has the balls. It just doesn't quite have the songs. You know what I mean? It's really not bad. And this is another one that isn't all that expensive. If you come across this for $20 or something, it's worth it. But this is, I don't see this ever becoming one that people are really clamoring for and freaking out over, losing their shit over Ruffians, It's just not, there's a lot to like about this record. But there's like one big thing to not like, and that's the songs. And that's kind of a shame because, they kind of had everything else going for them. Maybe they could have done a little better with that cover art, too. But it's the way it goes. Yeah, it's an interesting record, sort of historically as much as anything. Here's another one I pulled out, actually, because Simon over at Explosive Action was talking about this. This is such a great record, man. Restless and Wild. This is one that I like a little more every time I hear it, Like all the little songs are when I first heard this. When I first got into this record, we're talking back like not long after it came out. Yeah, this record came out in 82. I probably heard this for the first time in like 83 or 84. And Fast as a Shark impressed me right away. And then as I got into a little bit more Restless and Wild, became sort of my favorite song, and kind of still is, you know. Then eventually it sort of, you know, went ahead like with the Head of the Pack and Shake Your Heads and even Neon Nights. But then side 2 sort of petered out for me a little bit, you know. Now Princess of the Dawn, which is the last song on here, is one of my favorite songs, you know. And like Flash Rocket Man, love it too, you know. This is one of those records that every time I play it, I just like it a little bit more and a little bit more. And Accept is really, it's been sort of a long, long time coming. They're kind of becoming a favorite band, you know. Definitely a band you should know if you're interested in the history of metal, because Accept was heavier than just about anyone this early in their career. I mean, no one did anything as heavy as Fast as a Shark in 1982, you know? And this is fully like a modern heavy metal record in 82, as opposed to like one with sort of a foot in the 70s or anything like that. Even some of the earlier Accept records kind of had that, but this one could have held its own in 1986, you know? Yeah, I have to play that one again before it gets put away. Alright, how about another weird one? This is one I never heard of until kind of recently. And this one is pretty bonkers. I'm actually going to put this on. This is Rhed, Asphalt, The Obsession. And it's only 2 songs. And somehow the fact that it's only 2 songs makes it even a little bit more inscrutable. Because it's like, it's one thing when a band puts out a whole album and you hear one song and you're like, what the hell were they thinking? When all they put out was one song and you think, what the hell were they thinking? Then you really wonder what the hell they were thinking. You know what I'm saying? How about that label? Super plain, super simple. There are only 2 songs on this thing, 1 on each side. And, I mean, there's some great records like that. You know, the Child Saint record is only 2 songs. The Graven Image record is only 2 songs. This one is not at that level, but this one is kind of on its own level. It's like a mezzanine level between 2 other floors. I don't know, like the shit floor and the incredible, mind-blowing floor. You know? It just sort of hangs out in the middle and sort of looks over the banister. It's a weird record. Just the writing is so weird. It's a weird rhythm there, right? Not, you know, not like the greatest performance ever or anything. I like that the bass is high in the mix. And the bass is doing a lot. Yeah, these guys are from Florida. And this record's 88, which is even more weird because you'd think they would have gone thrash or something. If you were just going to start an ordinary band in 88, you probably would start a thrash band, you know? These guys kind of had their own ideas, but I don't know what the hell their ideas were. I kind of love them, though. That weird lead on top of the vocals. It's like sort of doubling the vocals, but not quite. With that cover. And that weird thing on the back. And just their faces there. This whole thing is just kind of bonkers. I love a record that I have to like try and figure out. You know what I'm saying? Like, records like this totally do it for me, because, like, when I go, what are these guys thinking? I mean, even, like, Credo, I understand that record, you know? I couldn't make that record. I could make a record like Crisis. I'm just saying philosophically, not like I could execute on this shit. Just so we're clear, I don't have any such delusions of grandeur, okay? But, like, that shit I get. This one, I just don't think I get. And I kind of love it for that. Like, there's so much playing in this, they are almost overplaying. And they're almost overplaying all the way through the song. But they're not quite. Somehow it all fits together anyway. Every time I listen to this, I feel like I'm listening for the broken parts. You know what I mean? Like the parts that don't quite fit together. I mean, they're going to this shit from where they were before. This shouldn't work, but it just does. And it's only a 2.5-minute song. It's almost over. Creatures is an instrumental, you know? If you're going to do something big and something sort of eccentric on your instrumental, I mean, Militia did it really successfully. You know, on the Sibling, side 2 of that record. But that doesn't feel like, sort of, like they look lost, but they're not. This one doesn't sort of have that going on. I might as well throw this on for a minute, too. Since you're not going to hear that one on anyone else's channel. Come to the Metal Theologian for the heavy hitters. By the way, the big exception with buying more shit by artists where I already have their stuff is jazz. I definitely do that with jazz. So, still an interesting thing to think about, though. You know, I prefer to plumb the depths, you know. When I feel like I know a band, I'd rather get to know another band, because there's always another band. There's always a lot more bands. Alright, let's fire this guy up for a minute here. I'm going to put on side 2, too. So this is the instrumental. So this is 6.5 minutes long. It's just called The Sibling. So the title track. And it's divided into 5 parts. And I think it's really cool. I love this record, okay? Just so we're clear. But it's not bonkers in the way that Rhed Asphalt is. Like, you can sort of hear the planning. You can hear sort of the thought process that goes into it. You know, this intro makes sense. You know, the wind chimes and shit. Yeah, there's no inscrutability there. There could be. But they pull it together better than that. Yeah, I've been interested in the Spanish shit lately. I sort of got pushed down that little rabbit hole by talking with the Merciful Metal. And so I pulled out some of the ones that I already had, and this is one of them. And I don't know, man. I really want to like this record by Panzer. But it just kind of, I mean, it doesn't suck. It's just not very good, you know? It's about as good as their band photo looks. Or just to say kind of bland and kind of ordinary, you know? In fact, the front cover kind of goes with it too. I mean, it really doesn't look all that metal. I mean, it looks metal, but it looks like, I don't know, it looks like it should be on New Renaissance or something like that. It just looks kind of crappy, you know? It's a mausoleum. Licensed from Chapo Discos, it looks like, which makes sense. Yeah, I don't really recommend that Panzer. Maybe one of these days I'll check out their earlier record. Because that one does have a much better cover. Here's another Nuclear War Now one, actually. It's a relatively recent reissue. This band's called Fingernails. And this record came out in '87 originally. I think it came out in Minotauro, but I'm not sure. It might have been like a private press, too. But this one, it's kind of bulldozer-ish, you know? This record, it has a reputation of being kind of a speed metal record with a little bit of a Motorhead influence. I'd say it's heavier on the Motorhead than it is on the speed metal because this really kind of works. I haven't really been in the speed metal mindset, right? But this record really works for me anyway, you know, because it kind of has the chunk and sort of the grit and that kind of shit, you know? It's not like a really clean, sort of well-executed speed metal record. I mean, it even says it right there, Italian speed metal. I mean, I guess by Italian standards, given how weird Italian metal tends to be, if you're going to put the qualifier Italian on it, then yes, I'll call it Italian speed metal. But just, yeah, but if you're looking for, like, an actual, like, speed metal record, you know, you might want to stick with, like, you know, a Viking record or something like that, or, you know, a Vicious Rumors record, because this is kind of weirder than that, you know. It's not as weird as, like, you know, Rollerball or some of the Italian bands, you know, but it's it definitely has its eccentricities, you know, which is why we all love Italy. If you don't love Italy, you're missing out. Yeah, I talked about softening that last time. I'm going to show this anyway because the cover is just so good. Ape Uprising. This is one I knew the least well out of the ones that I have, so I've been playing this one kind of a lot just to sort of get to know it a little bit better. And it's a banger, man. I mean, Atavism is probably still my favorite. I listened to Traveler a few more times, too, and I appreciate that record a little more every time I listen to it, too. Historically, though, my favorites have been, like, the holy trinity of Slowfag is, like, Atavism, Down Among the Dead Men, and Traveler. And Traveler, for me, has always been sort of the weak link in that chain, and that's the one that I didn't relate to as much. That's finally starting to change, I'm proud to report, because these guys deserve it. What a great fucking cover, dude. That's a band where I have more than one record by them. Here's one more that I finally bid on. There's a French band called Marienthal. Prohibition. I don't know what they were really thinking with that cover of that. This is a pretty, it's a No Remorse reissue. The original's rare and expensive, you know. It's really just a good heavy metal record, this one. Kinda no frills, but not so no frills that it's boring. This one has a couple bonus tracks, which normally I object to, but two are from their 45. They made 145 as well. And the other two are from the same recording session as the 45, so, you know, it's not like instrumental version of one of the other songs or something. It does make the thing a little bit long, and the last few songs sound a little bit out of place because they sound more primitive than the rest of the record. But they don't really spoil the listening experience, you know? And this is a pretty good record that doesn't overstay its welcome, you know? It's 85, maybe it sounds a little bit late for 85, but they were French, so what are you gonna do? They're kind of beating to their own drum in France. Not as weird a drum as in Italy, but, you know, the French kind of had some of their own shit going on in the 80s too, right? So, yeah, this is a pretty solid record. You know, again, I wouldn't say it's worth $500 or whatever, but if you come across this reissue, it's entertaining. It's a good record, you know. It's worth a few listens for sure. I liked it more than I expected to based on the cover and sort of the appearance of the thing, you know. We'll pick one more to talk about, and then we'll hang it up, I think. Oh, I guess we'll go with this one, man, just because this is one of the greatest covers of all time, and Darxon. I really want this record to be awesome. That's just kind of not. Let's fire it up for just a minute here, just because we can. But Darxon, they made a few records, too. They were German. Shit. And, I don't know, man. With that cover, I really want this to be the greatest thing ever. It really sets my expectations high. But I suppose the image that they really live up to is the Wishbone label. Which, shit, you see that shit? Because Wishbone kind of, it's kind of a crap label. It's a German label. Darxon was German. Like, if you couldn't get a deal with a Noise or Steamhammer or anybody else, Wishbone might pick you up. There were some Wishbone records that were pretty good too, like this one's a Wishbone, I think. Yeah, Metal Sword, featuring the single Disco as Fuck. Not incredible, but pretty good. But Darxon is kind of more like... See, I don't know, man. This kind of charming is the thing, you know? This one just doesn't have a lot of staying power. You know what I mean? The songs are kind of not great. And I don't know, man. Maybe I'll come around and like convince myself this record is actually great. But this right now is about as good as it gets. You know, which is pretty good. But when it's a lot less good than this for enough of the album, you kind of get tired of it. You know what I'm saying? Still though, man. It's hard to say it's not worth it when you get that cover with it. This is Danger Love with an exclamation mark. My favorite title is still Holy Macho, though. And I don't know what simile of evil means. I think maybe their German-English dictionary was misused there. You know something? 2 of the guys have mustaches, and that's probably just about right. Like 2 out of 4 mustaches is where this record ranks. I think the video is long enough, but I almost feel like I have to like let this run until it gets a little bit weaker, so I don't leave you with a false impression. Anyway, sample. Darxon's a band of sample before you go dropping any money on it. Okay, trust me. Anyway, though, thanks for watching. Check out Credo before you check out Darxon. Trust me. And I'll see you next time. Appreciate you watching.